Alrighty, hosses, welcome back. And now that we understand the concept of state, what I want to do is apply it to my little note program. So basically, I want to have state because these little notes, they're going to have basically two different modes. So the first mode is the one you see right now, is just normal mode. And it means that you're not editing it. You pretty much just have a chunk of text that you're looking at. So this is kind of the default mode. Now another mode I want to have is editing mode. In other words, whenever the user clicks this edit button, instead of just having static text right here, I want to display a form where they can edit the comment or write a new comment or whatever. So basically, I'm going to have these notes switch between two different modes or states, editing or normal. So how do I do that? Well, remember, whenever we want to use state, the first thing we need is that get initial state function. So this function pretty much just sets the initial state. Now, by default, I'm going to have these out of editing mode because whenever the user first loads this web page, we don't want a bunch of forms popping up. We just want, the default text. So I'm going to have one state, like I said. Make sure I spell it right, editing. And the default state, the editing state for all notes is just false. This just means normal mode, just display the text right here. All right, so actually I can get rid of these alerts right here. And all right, I might as well fix these. So now let's go ahead and think about this logic a little bit. So the first thing is whenever the user clicks this edit button, then this edit callback is called. So what do we want to do in terms of state? Well, whenever they click the edit button, we probably want to set editing to true instead of false, obviously. So this set state, remember, this is just equal to basically your states, just like this, but now we want to set it equal to true. All right, so what can we do? Remove, we won't even worry about that right now. And actually, let me go ahead, instead of having an alert, I just want to log this out because I just don't like those alerts popping up. They're annoying. And all right, so check this out. In normal mode, we can go ahead and hit edit, but then whenever they're in editing mode, we don't want to have the edit button still there because they're already editing. So instead of these buttons, we're going to have another button that says save. So whenever they're editing and they're done, they can hit save and it's going to pretty much save the text. So we need one more function and it's going to be a lot like this. And this is just going to be called save. And all save is going to do is for the moment is just going to set editing equal to false. So whenever you're done editing, hit save, and it's going to take you out of editing mode. All right, simple enough. So now what we're going to do is this. You see right here, we have one function called render. Now render always returns this version of the note right here. But what we essentially want to do is we want to say, okay, we don't just always display this HTML. You have to decide if you're in editing mode or not. If you're in normal mode, then go ahead and display this. But if you're in editing mode, then you actually want to display a form so the user can edit the text instead. So how do we do that? Well, what we can do is we can actually make two different functions, and I'll call them render form and render normal. So basically two different types of HTML, and then we'll choose between them. So I'll say render normal function, and again, all this is going to do is basically this. Actually, I can go ahead and cut that. All right, so whenever we call render normal, it's just going to display this right like this. Now we also want another one called render form. So what do we want to change of this? Let me actually think about this for a second. All right, so instead of this div, we actually want a text area. All right, so for the text area, we want to give it the default text of whatever the comment is, because whenever they're editing it, they want the text in there. So in order to do that, all we have to do is say default value and set it equal to, where is it? This.props.children. So again, instead of having the text display in here, it'll just display in the form. And all right, that looks good. Now, instead of these buttons, edit and remove, we actually just want a save button. So it's going to say save, and I'll say change that to green instead of blue. Now on click, whenever you're in editing mode, instead of editing it again because you're already in editing mode, you actually just want to save your text. So we're going to call save, and then it's going to change your mode to normal mode, take you out of editing mode. Boom, roasted, you're good to go. So all right, that looks pretty good for right now. Now the last thing I want to do is this. You see, these are just custom functions right here. We actually didn't even call them yet. Whenever we actually use the component, it always looks for this function called render. So inside here, we just have to write a little bit of logic, and it's just going to say if you are in editing mode, display this. If not, display this. Easiest thing you've ever done in your life. So I'll say if the state is editing, so if this state editing, then what we want to do is return this dot render form. So if they are editing the note, then display the form so they can edit it, else just display normal. So return this render normal. All right, looking good, mate, looking good. So now let me go ahead and refresh this. All right, now check this out. Whenever I hit edit, it changes from normal to render form. And it also puts editing mode, sets the state of editing equal to true. So right now the state of editing is equal to true. Now whenever I hit save, look what's going to happen. It's going to set the state of editing equal to false, and the logic is whenever that's false, it's just going to render normal. So return it back to normal. Same thing with any of these, and you can even do 2 at a time, it doesn't matter. So do you want to put them in editing mode? If so, it's going to give you a form. If not, it's going to put you back in normal. And if you want to change the default of it, then you can right here. But I mean, this is pretty good right now. So we got the displays taken care of. However, we have one issue still. Whenever the user actually edits the note and hits save, it doesn't actually change the text because we didn't write that logic anywhere. So that's what we're going to be working on in the upcoming tutorials. And yeah, we now know a whole lot about states. Looking good. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.